Good morning, KOTA Territory. Welcome to the KOTA Now Desk and welcome back to another DIY Friday Delights. We have a familiar face here with us today. Once again, we are joined by Chloe White, and Chloe is actually showing us something that she does very well, which is bookbinding. I've always wanted to try this as a hobby, like always wanted to. How did you originally get into all this stuff?
It was my COVID hobby, as people call the things they picked up during COVID. I had lots of downtime and was stuck in a house. So I really like books and I like prettier books.
I mean, who doesn't?
Right. And so I just wanted to make books that I felt were pretty enough.
Yes.
And so it was a really long journey of learning and experimenting and trying different things and making a lot of mistakes. But I've kind of figured out what works, what doesn't work, and yeah, we're gonna talk a bit about how to do it.
Yeah, I'm really excited here. So we've got a lot of fun trinkets and stuff in front of us. I love this, making sure things are even. Guys, this is one of those things that helps you cut things evenly, measure things evenly. I think if you're doing anything creative that you want good, even, straight lines, something like that will help a lot, and I am obsessed with this. What else have we got here?
So we have a book that is pretty necessary for bookbinding.
Yes.
However, if you are a bit more advanced than me, you can learn how to make your own journals and notebooks with blank paper. We're starting a bit ahead of the curve with a made cover. So I made a cover for our bookbinding today. There are so many different techniques you can use to make a cover, and there's so many different materials that it's really just what you like and how you want things to look. We also have some cardstock, and we are going to use these for end papers, which we'll talk a bit more about here soon. We have, of course, brushes and a paper plate. We have special glue that's non-acidic, which means it won't eat away or dissolve any of the paper particles. And then we have a fun charm that we're going to put on our ribbon bookmark.
I think that's my favorite part personally.
Yes.
I love what you have picked out.
I love picking out different charms and matching them to the book. It's very fun.
Well, let's just go ahead and jump right in. What's our first step here? So obviously we have the cover already made. So if you're looking for a tutorial on that, maybe use Google.
Yes. So the first thing is ripping off the cover, and I'm going to let you do it.
Oh my gosh, this hurts.
Yes,
I've never done this before.
But everyone has to try it at least once.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to put this up here so you guys can, oh my God. Wow, this is awful. I feel evil.
Yeah.
I feel evil. This, as a book lover, this feels so incredibly wrong.
No matter how many times I do it, it still hurts.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It just doesn't feel right.
All right, I think I got it mostly.
Okay.
Here you go.
Thank you. Yes. So once we get that cover off, we spend a few minutes mourning, feeling a little bad about ourselves, reminding ourselves we're not doing anything evil. We're going to fix it. We're going to make it look pretty. And then the next step is reinforcing the spine of the book. So when we take a cover off a book, we're kind of taking some of that glue that goes along the ends of the pages here that holds your entire book together. So we want to reinforce that to make sure things don't fall apart on us, because that wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, no, that would be very, very sad to put in all this work and have it just disintegrate.
Right. I have had that happen.
Really?
When I was still in my learning phase, trying to figure out things. I didn't think about this step. And it was really weird picking up a book and then all the pages just falling out.
Flying out.
Yeah.
You know, that actually has happened to me when I'm reading a regular store-bought book. A few times have gotten some misprints, I think, where just a whole chunk of the book fell out. And I was like, well, I'm glad pages are numbered.
So we're going to take this, which is just a really stiff sort of open weave cloth. And we're going to glue some of it along the spine. Okay. And you don't need a ton of it. Usually just want something kind of in the middle for the glue to hold on to.
Right. Right. That makes sense because, that sort of adhesive-y, what's it called in pottery? It's like a technique, scoring kind of.
Yes. Yes.
Kind of like doing that, but with cloth.
Right.
I don't know if that metaphor made sense.
No, it does. And you're totally right. You just want to have texture. Otherwise, it doesn't really have a lot to hold on to. So it'll dry, but it may peel off later if it doesn't grip.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay.
So I will let you go ahead and do that. You can choose either brush.
Sweet.
We may get glue on the table here.
That, you know what? That is what Clorox wipes and cleaning is for. So where about should I like put this?
I generally put them in the middle, and you do want some overlap, but we're not going to glue that overlap yet.
Okay,
so
so
right
just
now,
this middle part.
Yes, we're just gluing that middle part on the spine.
All right, and Chloe, you have been here at KOTA for a little bit now, a little bit. The first time I brought you on, you hadn't been here for that long yet. How are you sort of liking, you know, getting into the high-paced environment that is the newsroom?
I have been loving it. I think one of the most exciting parts about it is it really is something new every day. So I'm never really doing the same thing or looking at the same thing. And we really do have a great team of people. Everyone has been so welcoming and inviting and have really helped me settle into my role here. And so it's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it has been such a treat to have you here. I personally am all for more women in the newsroom, but that's because I'm biased and I think girls are way cooler than boys.
We are a little cooler. Yeah.
I just, like, so many cooler hobbies, right? Like, I don't know if I could ever have gotten some of the people, some of the guys in the newsroom. I'm specifically thinking of Brian and Blake on our last DIY. They seem to struggle a little bit more in the creativity realm of crafting.
I did see the air clay dish Blake made. He did show
you know,
me.
honestly, they surprised me. They did pretty well. They rose to the challenge.
They did, yes.
And, you know, you have a lot more hobbies, obviously, than just reading and book stuff, and you like things. And I can't remember if I asked you this last time, but I want to know if it's changed. What would you say is your guilty pleasure right now? Like, what do you do if that's like, oh, I get some me time?
I would say I listen to audiobooks at my house, but I do it while like laying on my couch and like doing nothing else. Just sit on my couch, maybe on my phone playing a game and listening to an audiobook because it feels a little bit better than just watching TV. Because I'm like, well, it's a book.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's more educated. But it's, you know, still super relaxing and enjoyable, and I don't have to really think too much.
Yes.
So it's nice.
I think that's the best part of me time. Let's go ahead and jump into this next step here.
Okay, so another part of reinforcing our spine so all the pages in our book don't just fall out on us is something called headbands. We don't put them in our hair. We could, I guess, but probably
We tied a bunch together.
Yeah. So we can pick any color we want. I'm thinking, because I brought this burgundy to go with the bookmark, probably more neutral color like black.
Yes.
And these headbands, we are going to cut to the width of the spine. So
Okay.
however thick the spine is what we're going to cut. So if you will hand me that ruler.
We got to be very precise here, people.
Yes.
This is a science as more than it is an art, I feel like sometimes, because this is feeling very like a precise sort of labor of love.
It is, and as someone who's not very good at math, it was kind of a shock how much math I had to do to figure this out. There's a lot, especially when you're learning how to make the covers. You have to do a lot of calculations in order to figure out things like spacing, because the book has to open and close properly.
Yes.
So that can be really tough. However, once you get the hang of it, you can kind of move through things fairly quickly. And you can kind of get into a rhythm and then focus more on experimenting and learning what you think is more fun to do or that you think looks better.
I can get behind that. I think it's fun when things have sort of a precision to them because, you know, love crafting, obviously. On this show a lot, we do a lot of crafting, but I feel like I struggle sometimes with a little more of the free-handy, do whatever you want kind of crafts rather than having sort of a specific set of instructions, which is also why I've been loving having people bring me things so that they can tell me how to do things instead of me telling them, which I think is just always fun and silly. What would you say has been sort of your favorite part about living in South Dakota?
I would say that I like the people. I feel like, you know, everyone we have here, for the most part, is very nice.
Yes.
Very kind. You know, I know where I live specifically, we have some pretty great neighbors who go out of their way to create a good community and who love being involved with other people and supporting each other. And it's really great because those aren't people that I'm related to or I know, it's just random strangers who have found a way to show kindness every day in little ways.
Yeah,
So-
you know, we had a question of the day on the morning shows a few weeks ago that was, what's the typical South Dakotan's personality? And without a doubt, I think one of the main things that I saw was people saying kindness, like that Midwestern kindness and politeness and charm and hospitality is a huge part of the culture here, and that is something that I love. Now, I think we're maybe getting to some end pages?
Yes, so that is the next step. The end pages are usually just thick paper that you cut to the size of your book. You can choose anything you want. You can choose any color, any pattern. It's really fun going and picking out papers and stuff like that. Especially if you already like crafting, it's almost an extra excuse to buy
Fancy paper. I mean, you can never have enough.
Exactly. And so that's really fun. The end papers are what keeps the book connected to your hardcover.
Okay.
So it's pretty important that whatever you do pick, it's thick, it's heavy, it has a little, you know, strength to it.
Right.
When you glue these on, you only want to put glue on, I'd say probably like
Just a
maybe
little
a quarter
teeny
inch,
tiny.
I think that is, on the inside of the paper.
Okay.
So having only just that little bit to connect to the actual book itself.
All right.
And you do that so that your book actually opens up. If you do more than that, you can have a really hard time actually
Opening her.
and reading your book.
That would stink. You know, the whole point of reading, of having these books isn't just because they look pretty, although that is definitely a perk. It is reading them.
Right. One of the things that this is really great for is if you get books secondhand or you pick something up from like a garage sale, if it has a torn cover or maybe it's not in the best condition, rebinding the book is a great way to give it some extra life or, you know, kind of spruce it up a bit.
Yes, I've definitely seen a lot of people on TikTok and social media doing this, you know, as like a fun way to kind of make their old paperbacks. I saw one person who got all of their old like Harry Potter books from childhood and made it into this like big giant bound book that they did with like super fancy stuff. What's like the craziest cover and rebind that you've ever done?
I think probably also my most difficult one was, I'm sure you know, but in the Throne of Glass series, there's two books that are meant to be read together. So it's called a tandem read, which means you read certain chapters in one book and then switch to the other and read certain chapters in another, which can be really difficult if you are trying to carry around two books, if you are reading on like you know, e-reader or something, trying to switch back and forth is really tough. So I took the books and I had to get 4 copies, well, 2 copies of each book, so 4 books total, and take out all the individual chapters.
Wow.
And then splice them together to make one book that's in the order that you're supposed to read it.
That's really, really cool. And that tandem read is no joke. I did that, I think, wow, 2 years ago now when I was rereading that series for the first time since middle school. And it is like, these are some big chunky books. This is not like a, you know, 250 page little delightful read. This is like some big fantasy, like big books, which I love that. How many pages did that end up like being? I'm sure over 1,000.
Yes, I think it was close to like 1,400 or 1,500. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I don't know if I'll do it again.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
It was a lot of work.
That seems like it would be pretty difficult.
Yeah, and it was one of those things of, I tried it just to figure out if I could do it. So now that I know I can, I'm like, well, maybe I don't need to do it again.
Would you ever consider doing that to a different series? Like, I don't know many other tandem read situations in the book world. I mean, I'm sure people will leave their comments. I would love to know. But are there any other book series that you would consider sort of piecing together like that yourself?
I think one thing I have done is take series that are thinner books and smaller books and bound them together in one book. So there's a couple different series where maybe it's a trilogy and each book's about 250 pages roughly. And so I've put them all together in one book before, which is really cool because I'm a pretty quick reader. And also, once I finish a book, I need to read the next one.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait. There's no, oh, we'll go next week to the bookstore. It's like, nope, I need it right now.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it was pretty nice being able to have something on hand right there. And I didn't even have to get up from my spot on the couch.
All right, what are we doing here? I see we're getting ready to attach this bookmark.
Yes. So I love ribbon bookmarks. So I add them to every book. You don't have to. But I think they're really fun and also really convenient.
I think they're every book lover's dream.
Right.
Every time a book has one, it's like, I'm sold, I'm buying it. Doesn't matter where I am. It's going into my cart and I am swiping my card.
Yes. So this can be done two ways depending on your preference. So once you put the bookmark through the middle of the book, just kind of to hold it in place, you can either glue the bottom of the bookmark or you can glue the top. It depends on which part you want sticking out. So some people, like me, don't like having this on the bottom of their bookshelves.
Oh, okay.
Because it doesn't sit right. It gets kind of smushed and it doesn't always like protect the bottom of the book. So I usually leave the top part hanging out of the book and glue the bottom. So that way, when it sits on my shelf, it sits flat.
That's so smart. I've never thought of that before. I don't think I've actually ever seen it like that before.
It's something I didn't do when I first started this because I was like, that's kind of weird.
But it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, every book I've bought from like a store that has a ribbon bookmark, the ribbon sticks out in the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I did see a TikTok video about this and I was like, wait a minute.
I don't have to do it that way.
Yeah, they might be onto something.
Yeah. That is pretty interesting and honestly really a smart way to protect your books. I have definitely had before bookmarks in the past that just bend pages or mess up the bottom because I'm not being delicate, so it might be user error, but maybe it would help if it came out of the top instead.
So the next part is putting the book in the cover. I'm going to let you do this part.
Okay.
So we don't put glue on the spine except what's already kind of left over from everything we've attached. And we just make sure it fits in there. We kind of check all the sides to make sure it's not super high or low. And then all you do is put a bunch of glue. You might want to use the big brush for this.
The big brush.
And put glue all over this side of the end paper.
Okay.
The really important step is to try not to get it over the edge of the end paper because your end papers will glue together.
Oop, that would not be good.
Yeah, that does happen.
I would not be happy with that. That would be sad. I actually have you ever opened a book and it like the pages are still kind of stuck together from the binding process? Like if it's like a brand new book and they're still stuck. That happens to me a lot with sprayed edges. You know, have you ever sprayed the edges of a book that you are working on?
I have. It's, I think, harder to learn how to do right in binding a book. But there are so many different ways to do it that you can try all sorts of techniques. You can also try a lot of different things that fit in your budget, which is one of the cool things about bookbinding is there is an affordable option for nearly every step. And so it's something that everyone can get into, and then if you really enjoy it, you can continue to invest in it.
Okay, I think I've got it.
Maybe a little more up here at the top, and then we will close this side.
It's already getting sticky. Okay.
Make sure it, there we go.
Give it a good press. Good press on here. Okay.
And then we do the same to the back.
Okay, I think I'm gonna need a little bit more glue here. Or maybe I'm just being a little glue crazy.
Oh, I use tons of it.
Where do you buy like this special glue and what is it called?
So this is referred to as a neutral pH adhesive, but it's just a paper glue. So there are tons of different options. You can find some here locally. You can order from a few retailers on site. But the main thing to focus on when buying a glue, regardless of the brand, is that it has a neutral pH. So if it doesn't have a neutral pH, it can wear away pretty quickly at paper.
Okay.
Paper is really delicate, so the sun can fade its color, moisture of any kind in the air can warp it, and same thing with glue. Glue is wet, so when you're applying it to paper, you want it to be something that doesn't deteriorate the quality of the paper or the weave of the paper.
Okay, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Sorry, this is turning into a pretty long DIY for us here today, so I'm trying to speed up our process. Are there any other kind of tips that you've learned along the way with this that people should know if they're going to try getting into bookbinding?
Measure everything over and over and over again. I have made a lot of covers for books and them not fit the book because I didn't measure right, or end papers didn't line up correctly, or some other part of the book didn't quite fit. So it's just always really important to measure, because nothing is more disappointing than reaching the end and going, oh, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
And then nothing fits right.
That would be pretty devastating to have happen. So how do you attach the charm here? That's kind of seems like our last step, besides making sure that everything stays glued together.
Later, we're going to put a heavy weight on this. Usually, I use other books just because it's the easiest thing. But to attach the bookmark, I use kind of just jewelry pieces.
Okay.
So we have this sort of little keychain clamp thing. It's really tiny, very hard to see. But you add it to ribbon, and it kind of attaches a metal hoop to the end of ribbon or any type of cloth.
That makes sense to me, because in my very limited jewelry making experience, that's kind of how you would do anything with ribbon, to kind of close it off, make sure it fits, and do what it needs to do.
Yes. So this can be kind of a difficult process because they are really tiny.
That makes sense to me.
But we would attach this. I usually use pliers, and then you can go ahead and just add on whatever charm you want.
I do really like that one. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me here on DIY Friday Delights. If you're interested in getting some more tips for this, Chloe, do you have any parting words, or where people can maybe find these if they are looking for your work?
Yeah, so I do sell some books on Etsy and Mercari. If it's something you want to learn how to do yourself, there is a wealth of information, particularly on places like TikTok. Both Mimi and I have seen tons of videos on there, and they're a great place to start. And then also watching YouTube, things like that. And you can even go to some of your local bookstores here in Rapid City, or even the public library, and they'll be able to tell you different things about the quality of different book papers and glues and all sorts of stuff.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, and have a great weekend, everyone.